Hey everybody, Rob Riggle here.
Darren Leader.
Welcome back to Riggle's Picks. Today we have a very special guest. Someone who just keeps, it's like the Christmas gift that keeps on giving.
Herpes?
No, like the giving tree. It just keeps giving. Jon Carmichael is with us today.
And it's John with no H.
Right.
I appreciate that.
Thank you for pointing that out. John with no H.
Yep.
But the more we've been sitting around talking before we started the show, the more it just keeps unfolding.
It seems fake.
Unfolding.
It's so
and
much.
Unfolding. There's so much to this man, and I cannot wait to dive in. We're going to dive in here real fast because we got a lot to unpack and not much time to unpack it, John. But before we do that, Darren has a confession to make.
I'm not wearing underwear, John.
So, with that in mind, John, let's begin. John, you are a renowned photographer. You have taken some amazing shots. Some say the greatest shot, the greatest photo of all time.
In the history of mankind and photos.
Is that now? I don't think I'm overstating it. I'm not overstating it, am I?
Dude, look at that.
Oh!
That's
wow.
Okay, well.
Okay, now I kind of see how this is being called one of the greatest.
Give us
I didn't give it that title.
Okay, well,
give us
the word on the
context
street, John.
about this photo, please. First of all, welcome to the show.
Yeah, welcome to the show.
Thank
Fist
you.
bump. We all do
Yeah.
that. Boom, boom. All right.
I'm excited to be here.
God, that was weak. That was weak on your part, Darren.
I'm just trying to interview John without an H.
Okay. So, so let's dive into this. First of all, describe yourself, if you would, please. Describe, you're an astro-photographer?
Yeah.
Is that the best way to describe it?
That's my main passion. I do
Okay.
all sorts of different photography. I've done political photography and corporate events, and I've photographed for, Twitter was my main client for about 8 years. Shot for ESPN, Dell, Microsoft.
So, all things photography then. You really do cover the spectrum.
Yeah.
Pun intended.
Hey.
Yeah, when I first started, I was living here in LA, and I was just kind of depressed, lost. I was 19 years old and broke, and didn't know what I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to work in film and TV. I just love on set, magic, and I accidentally fell in love with photography and taught myself. And
You have an eye. Clearly, you have an eye for photography. You have a vision. I'm looking at this photo. This was I think it was either Gabe or Claire or someone said it's the greatest photo of all time. Right? Is that? Are we guys?
People have said history's most amazing photo.
History's most amazing photo.
But
And as I look at it, I get it. This is powerful.
well, thank you.
What a powerful shot. Hopefully, we're going to be able to put that up. Gary, we're going to be able to put that up. I'm hoping on the YouTube when people watch this.
It'd be cool if they could see it with their eyes.
Yeah, well, we have a lot of listeners that are driving right now and they can't see it, but it'll be available on YouTube. Gary just gave me the thumbs up.
I have to say, John, this thing looks fake. It
I get
looks
that a lot.
It looks staged, and it looks like you superimposed the
Yeah.
moon, and
Yeah.
it's shocking that it's real.
Thank you. It used to really bother me when people would call it fake. Now I take it as a compliment.
You
At
have-
least this was made before the AI stuff.
You have to. I mean, I meant it as a compliment because it looks so like nothing we've ever seen.
Yeah, and it's surreal in a way.
Very.
So I got to ask, this is a space photo. How did you get to space?
So this was on a commercial airliner. It was on a Southwest Airlines flight.
What?
No way.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
you get out of here, John. Seriously.
I'm banned from the podcast.
That was on a Southwest flight.
Yeah.
Actually, it is. There's a little peanut oil from the peanuts.
I
A
get
little
it.
Smear.
Yeah.
Right there on the corner.
Somebody with a peanut allergy in the
Yeah.
aisle. I see it.
Yeah, I've been visualizing this since I was 12 years old. I first learned of what an eclipse was in 7th grade geography class. My teacher, Miss Thompson, who I just got in touch with, by the way,
Really?
taught us what an eclipse was in the classroom and got out a globe and had a student hold a flashlight across the room representing the sun and had a baseball representing the moon, started orbiting the moon around the Earth, illustrating what the moon's phases are. And she said, every once in a while, though, the moon will perfectly align in between the sun and the Earth, creating what's called a total solar eclipse. And if you're lucky enough and in the right place at the right time, it's very rare, but you can actually be inside that moon shadow. See that dark area in the bottom right? That's the moon shadow cast onto the Earth, moving across the Earth at 2,000 miles per hour.
Oh, wow. So I'm going to ask you the question. I don't know if you've been asked this. Tell me if you have. Did you buy this plane ticket intentionally at this time?
Oh, yeah. I was plotting this out for years.
This was the chart, the course, you knew everything.
So not at first. 9 months before the eclipse, Alaska Airlines did this big social media stunt, and they announced that they had one of their aircraft that was fully reserved for astrophysicists and astronomers, eclipse chasers, to be on this flight. And it was going to fly over the Pacific Ocean. And this was the first total solar eclipse in 99 years in the U.S. It was a really historic moment. I'm sure most people listening remember it. And they were keeping one seat open on this plane to fly with them. All you had to do was submit a 30-second video explaining why you should be the one on this flight. And I'm like, oh, I got this. Like, I know how to edit videos, and my dad was big in, advertising and stuff. And I thought, I've got this. I composed music, which I had never done before. I bought a nice microphone for the voiceover, and made it exactly 30 seconds with a crescendo and everything, showing some of my work. And I had to tell my whole life story in 30 seconds. And I submitted it. I'm looking at all the other videos being submitted, and most people were just talking on webcam, no editing, very little effort. A lot of people were going way over the 30-second limit, and I'm like, man, my confidence started building. I'm like, I think this is it. I'm going to be on this plane. But the problem is they didn't announce the winner until less than a week before the eclipse.
Too close.
Doesn't give you an opportunity.
And all my eggs are in this basket, and I was living in New York City, and New York's nowhere near the moon shadow path, because it's only, that eclipse was about 60-mile wide moon shadow, and it went across the middle of the U.S. I didn't have a contingency plan, and this is it. And they announced the winner, and I lost. And I was so devastated, and I thought for sure they didn't see my video because the person that won, I'm like, are you kidding me? You know? And started trying to email all these executive Alaska Airlines email addresses, and to no avail. So I laid in bed depressed for a couple days, just thinking it's all over, and then I finally roll out of bed, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to look at all the commercial flights around the country, and look at all the flight paths, look at the departure times, and all this, and try to compare it to the moon shadow path. And after just 5 minutes, I'm already pulling my hair out, thinking this is impossible. If this flight's leaving out of Los Angeles, going to Detroit, and crosses over, this state at this time, in the moon shadow, if any of these flights are 1-2 minutes delayed, it's over. You know, and it was just seemed impossible. So right before giving up, actually, a friend of mine, my friend Justin, called me. He was like, "Oh, did you see this flight?" I had all these friends trying to help, right?
Yeah.
And I'm a sport pilot, so I had a little bit of experience plotting, charting flights. So there was one flight on Southwest Airlines that was going from Portland, Oregon to St. Louis, Missouri. And if you look at the moon shadow path, it matched the moon shadow path. So there wasn't as much of an intersection to worry about.
Yeah.
It went with the moon shadow, and it departed an hour before, and the moon shadow was going eastbound like we were, and it would catch up to us. I'm like, man, there's got to be a good chance that the pilots are going to be aware of what's happening, because it was huge news. And so I book a flight to Oregon the day before, fly to New York, and at that time, this was the biggest travel day in history as well. And so it wasn't a cheap flight. I didn't care. And I was actually considering doing a private jet for this, but I couldn't afford it, And so I get to New York, or I get to Oregon the day before, but it's Southwest Airlines. They don't have any assigned seating.
Right.
I really need a window seat. So I check in, right at the 24-hour mark, because all the A group was already sold out. There was only one seat left on this flight. It was crazy. It felt meant to be.
Why was it so packed like that, I wonder?
Because everybody
was trying to do this too?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Well, a lot of people on that flight didn't know what was going on, but Alaska Airlines got such big publicity from their contest. So anyway, so I get to the gate. Well, when I checked in the day before, I get Group C, seat 18, and I'm like, I'm going to be the last person on this
Yeah,
plane.
this is not
I'm not
good.
even going to get a window seat.
You're a middle seat guy.
Let alone, a window that's up front so that the wing isn't in the way of the shot. You know, I've been visualizing this shot for my whole life, essentially. And so I get to the airport, and I don't know what the odds of this are, but that Alaska Airlines flight was leaving out of the same city, out of the same airport, out of the gate right next to ours. And they're having this huge eclipse party, literally a red carpet event, step and repeat
The
in
one
the
that you
airport.
originally tried to get on.
Yes. News cameras, astrophysicists being interviewed. And there's the person that beat me right in front of me, and I turn around and look at our gate, and it says that our flight's 25 minutes delayed, and I'm like, you've got to be freaking kidding me. And finally, a flight attendant comes on to the PA system. She says, "Thank you so much for your patience, ladies and gentlemen. There's a reason why we've delayed the flight today. Most of you have heard by now, a very historic moment happening in the country. For the first time in 99 years, total solar eclipse, yada, yada. These three gentlemen standing next to me here are three executives from Southwest Corporate that flew out from our headquarters in Dallas to be on the flight with us today. They brought eclipse glasses with them. All the drinks are free on the flight today. So they're all solar eclipse themed drinks. So a Bloody Mary is now called a solar flare, you know. But the best news of all, we deliberately delayed the flight just right to ensure that we would be right inside the moon's shadow, which is called totality." Oh, thank God. I mean, I was almost in tears out of relief because that was the biggest thing.
That
right?
I'm amazed at but the level and the commitment by so many people to this to being up in the air for this eclipse.
Yeah, I mean, there's some pros and cons. The pros, you're above the clouds, so if it gets clouded out, you know, this last eclipse we just had in April, most of the country was clouded out, which is really disappointing. But this, you know, gives you this aerial view. And anyway, so I just keep thinking I should really introduce myself to these executives, right? Because I need a window seat.
Yeah.
And I'm Group C, so I get all my camera gear out of my bags to, you know, put my lenses on my cameras to show maybe I'm legit, maybe I know what I'm doing, and I'm wearing a NASA t-shirt, you know, and I tell them my story, and I showed them my Alaska Airlines video. It's only 30 seconds, shows my work and stuff. And they said, "Those are your photographs?" I said, "Yeah, and you were supposed to be on that flight, but you're on ours instead, and you flew across the country to take photos of this?" Yeah. I said, "Yeah, but I really need a window seat." They said, "Okay, come with us. I'm the first one on the plane." They said, "Pick whatever seat you want." And it's like, this is
That's good. I'm glad you advocated for yourself. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people might have just sat there and said, "Oh boy, I don't want to." But I'm glad you just kind of took the initiative, and said, "Hey, by the way, you know, you didn't say I need it. I got to have it. You make it happen." You weren't demanding, but you got what you needed.
Do you play the lottery? Because I feel like you're lucky.
I grew up in Las Vegas, actually.
Would you come with me? Would you come with Darren and I?
Will you give me some number suggestions? I feel like there's a series of very fortunate events that happen.
Right.
And like Rob said, you were a squeaky wheel, which you have to be.
Sometimes.
But also, it's pretty serendipitous, you know, that you missed that flight, you got on this one. Now there's executives you can chat with.
Right.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, thank God I wasn't on that last flight because I stalked their social media afterwards, of course. And they weren't even over American soil. They were covered in clouds and fog. The person that won the contest was right over the giant wing. And so they let me on the plane, first person on the plane. They said, "Pick whatever seat you want. Now my next goal is to find the cleanest window." So I'm looking through all these windows, and I run back to the front of the plane. I said, "You guys, I can't shoot out of any of these windows. The outside of the plane is filthy dirty." And the pilot, the captain, Jeffrey Jackson, changed my life. He overhears me. He goes, "Hold on. Why don't you sit on the left side of the plane in row 1? I think I can get your window cleaned." So the pilot himself gets into the cockpit, gets these cleaning supplies, gets out of the plane using the moving jetway thing you get on the plane with, reaches over and washes my window from the outside of the plane.
Dude.
Wow.
That's crazy.
See, all of this worked out 100 times better than your original plan.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
God works in mysterious ways.
Yeah. Here's the him washing the window here.
Oh my gosh.
Bro.
That's amazing.
And
so I'm looking at the picture that you got. You see this moon shadow. You see Earth. You see this
Is
beautiful
that
river.
the Mississippi?
That is actually the Snake River, where Evel Knievel,
Really?
that is famous rocket launch.
Yeah.
And that's actually happens to be the border of Oregon and Idaho. So Oregon's on the left, Idaho's on the right. So you have the shape of 2 U.S. states for the Great American Eclipse. And I'll wrap the story up really quick because this is the best part.
Best part?
It gets crazier. So I start collaborating with the captain. I said, okay, look, I've been visualizing this since I was 12 years old. I really want to make it look like we're in space.
Yeah.
Because the moon's shadow is going to black out the Earth's atmosphere. That's why you can see through the atmosphere, because that's the moon's shadow above us and beneath us. It's kind of like an Oreo cookie, you know. And so I said, I need to get at least a 180-degree view of the Earth. But shooting through this little 8-inch wide window, I need to do, you know, this big panoramic photo mosaic. Is there any way you could sort of turn the plane around when we're in the moon's shadow? He's like, I'd have to get approval by the air traffic control to do that. I was like, I know that this is absurd to ask. And he's like, yeah. But considering there's all these people excited and we have executives on board and it's this historic moment, and I will ask them, but do not get your hopes up. That's a very slim chance. I'm like, oh man, thank you. That's all I can ask for. So we climb up to 35,000 feet. And we're about 10 minutes from totality. So the moon is blocking the sun more and more. The sun now looks like a little crescent.
Yeah.
And the captain comes on to the intercom. He says, all right, ladies and gentlemen, we're about 10 minutes away from totality. I'm going to do what's called an S-turn maneuver. I'm like, oh my God, he's going to do it. He's going to turn the plane. And so he starts turning the plane, banking it to the left and to the right. And I've got 3 cameras on me, you know, I'm covering 2 windows, suction cupped, and I'm sweating and shaking. I'm utilizing everything I've ever learned in my 17-year career, right? In these, it was only 2.5 minutes that lasted. We got 3 minutes though, because we were flying 500 miles per hour with the moon shadow. So we got 30 extra seconds. Thank God, because I needed that. And I immediately could tell he wasn't turning the plane enough. It wasn't steep enough, and he wasn't turning enough time, so I wasn't getting a wide enough view. Obviously, it's out of my hands now. There's nothing I can do. But the flight attendants, I'm in the first row, so the flight attendants, they're both sitting in the jump seat facing me right in front of me. And they get a call from the captain, and they said, John, the captain wants to know, how was that turn? I was like, are you kidding me? This actually is the private jet I always dreamed of. I said, well, since you're asking, it wasn't good enough? He said it wasn't good enough. It's got to be a sharper turn. So he climbs up another 4,000 feet to 39,000 feet, because you actually lose altitude if you turn sharp enough. And he turned the plane around 5 times while we're in the moon shadow. And he sent me the flight path later.
Wow, he was doing S-turns, wasn't he? Look at that.
Look at like all those. Like the last turn is just...
Yeah, that's dramatic.
And that last
Those
turn
are
is when I
90-degree
got
turns.
the eclipse. Thank
Was
God.
it really?
Yeah. Actually, it was very cool.
Because you are seeing through the atmosphere. You're seeing through the blue, you consider the atmosphere, with the shadow. So it's this wonderful darkness above and below the atmosphere, and then the light over on this part of the Earth. I guess that would be...
That's outside of totality.
Idaho.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is, I can see why people say this is one of the most breathtaking, powerful photos ever taken, because it really feels like you're capturing the cosmos and Earth.
Yeah, and that's about 175 degrees from left to right. So yeah, almost full 180-degree view. I worked on this for an entire year. It's not just a quick little snapshot.
Yeah.
I took 1,200 photos in these few minutes, and it was the most difficult project I've ever done, because I've done a lot of photographic mosaics before of the galaxy and the stars and stuff. That's kind of what you have to do sometimes. That's what Hubble Space Telescope does, and James Webb now, where you take a bunch of different photos zoomed in really close and stitch them all together like a giant puzzle. And so I spent an entire year putting this together. I was rushing to get it done in time for the 1-year anniversary. And when I unveiled it, I mean, I was proud of how it was, how it came out, and but I had no idea it would change my life so much, and I didn't know it would actually inspire people so much. And the story too, I didn't even share the story with anybody until I started showing my drafts, to close friends and family, and they're like, wait, how did you get this?
Yeah,
and I start telling them, they're like, wait, you got to tell people the story, because that's crazy. And so And then the way I unveiled it, Twitter, was my client, and I was telling you guys a little bit about this. I was shooting the biggest event Twitter's ever done in their history, a week-long event with every employee from around the world, 47 offices around the world, all flew to be together, company all hands. And my job was to document it all, doing event photography. And the big surprise keynote speaker was going to be Elon Musk. And I was the only one that knew that because I had to know all the ins and outs of things going on. And this was just 2 weeks before I'm going to unveil this thing. And I'm like, I know what my job is. I'm going to be backstage with Elon and Jack Dorsey to get a photo of them together. That's just how it goes, right? Yeah. So I know I'm going to have this intimate moment with Elon. So I decided I wanted to give Elon the very first print of this. And I printed it. I do like these fine art limited edition prints where they're printed with laser instead of ink onto crystal. And I go all out with these images. And I decided I'm going to give him print number 1, and I designed it in a way to fold together in thirds so it fits in his jacket pocket, so he can unfold it and actually see it. And
John, you're the most thoughtful
I was
person
about to
I've
say, you have, even from 12, when you started this whole visualization in your mind, everything you do, I don't want to say you overthink, but you
Oh, I overthink. It's my middle name.
but it seems like it's just meticulous thinking. It just feels like you are a great organizer and planner.
Does it drive you nuts sometimes?
Oh yeah, I have insomnia. I overthink everything. Yeah.
Do you wake up in the middle of the night and go and have to write down ideas?
Yeah. I get that from my dad. My dad did that a lot. Yeah.
Well, you said he was an advertising man, so I
he
bet his brain never turned off.
Yeah, he founded a company called Carmichael Lynch Advertising, which is one of the top 10 ad agencies in the world or in the country. I didn't grow up as a rich kid though, because he left there and his partner, Lee Lynch, I won't get into that, but it's kind of a bad story there. But my dad had another passion of board game design. So he designed hundreds of board games.
Tell us the most famous game.
Mr. President.
Mr. President.
It was big in the 60s and 70s. My dad was born in 1931.
Oh my gosh.
So,
whoa.
Yeah, he was 55 when I was born.
Holy moly.
So huge age gap. I have a sister that just turned 70.
Wait. Stop,
yeah.
John.
Half sister. My dad's first marriage.
Stop, John. What? Let's just give me a second.
Yeah.
You've got a sister that's 70.
Because you're young.
I just turned 38. Yeah.
Okay. Here's what I think all of us are thinking.
Yeah.
Was your dad like the guy in Mad Men?
Oh, it's funny that you say that because for Christmas one year, I surprised my dad with a whole DVD set of Mad Men. I think you would probably like this because this was your...
Yeah.
After the first episode, he couldn't watch anymore. It was
too real.
It was too real. It was too close to the bone.
Holy moly.
Yeah.
Too close to the bone.
God, your dad was John Hamm.
Yeah.
Well, major player.
Yeah.
But John has an H in his name too, right?
John Hamm does.
Yeah.
My dad, he went by Jack, but his name was John with an H, John.
See? That's amazing.
And so he was not a good businessman, and he knew that, and that's why he brought Lee Lynch on. Carmichael Advertising. It turned into Carmichael Lynch Advertising, but he was so torn between advertising or board games, and board games was his true passion. And so he was a creative genius, but he was struggling financially his whole life till the day he died. But Mr. President was his biggest board game in the 60s and 70s, and I had the honor of. I actually gave President Obama my dad's unopened copy, sealed copy, the first production from 1967 of the Mr. President board game. I gave President Obama that game, and it sat in his office the last year of his presidency.
In the Oval Office.
Yeah.
My gosh.
You realize how fake all of this sounds?
I know. And
it's almost like a Forrest Gump, where you're just hitting the touch points
Totally.
of history.
And also I invented gymnastics.
Yeah. Well, and we also just found out that when we were hanging out in the pre-show, we were talking, and you had mentioned your family comes from Scotland.
Yeah.
And there's royalty on
I mean,
some level.
Well,
on some level,
royalty killers.
Yeah, well, break that down for us too, because I'm fascinated by that.
Yeah, because my dad passed away, unfortunately, about 10 years ago, and it was devastating for me. I was very close to him, And I just wanted to naturally learn more about my heritage, and I thought I was Irish for some reason, and so I found out we're Scottish, and so I flew out to Scotland. My dad got cremated, and so I've been spreading his ashes around the world, and I live in a camper van now, and so it's fun. I kind of check off his bucket list. I took him ash diving, skydiving, because he always wanted to go skydiving.
That's amazing.
Which is crazy because the skydiving he was supposed to do got canceled on his 80th birthday because President Obama flew into town, canceled the whole skydive, and then he never ended up skydiving. But turns out he had this this horrible heart condition, and if he would have gone skydiving, his surgeon swears that
it might have
killed him. And so Obama sort of indirectly saved my dad's life, and that's actually sort of how I met Obama, and I made this whole joke to him. I said, all right, I love you and all, but I have a bone to pick with you. My first time meeting him, and the room gets all quiet and awkward, probably thinking he's probably like, oh God, one of these people are going to criticize my policies. Yeah. And I said, 2 days ago, you were in Vegas, right? He said, yeah. Well, you ruined my dad's birthday. We were supposed to take him skydiving and all this. And he's like, oh, I'm very sorry. Tell your dad we'll have to make it up to him. I'm like, I'm going to hold you to that. And then that moment, Seth MacFarlane was there.
Of course he was.
It was the craziest night of my life. My friend Justin
was Charlize Theron there as well? Like, come on, just don't stop.
I kicked her out of the bedroom.
Yeah,
I know. Sorry if I'm name dropping.
Dude, you got to name drop, and it's awesome.
No, that's what makes it great.
Awesome.
These stories are unbelievable.
So the campaign people thought it was hilarious, and so we grabbed drinks with them later, and then I met this woman, Carol Hamilton, and then I lived in Nevada. That's where I grew up, and obviously swing state, and we're really trying to win Nevada. This is before the second election, and that's just how the whole Obama stuff started. And then I ended up meeting him 15 times when he was in office, and Michelle, and
that's amazing too.
It was crazy. So anyway, I digress. I can't remember what we were talking. Oh, but my dad's board games and stuff. So
we're talking about the royalty, the family.
Oh,
royalty.
So you mentioned King Henry VIII earlier.
Yes, we were talking about Marie Antoinette, and then we were talking about Henry VIII, and we were talking about all these
historical figures
from back then.
Yeah, and King Henry VIII. When I went to Scotland, it turns out that there's a village called Carmichael, Scotland, and it's where our family started. And I'm going to butcher this story a little bit, but our actual name Carmichael comes from Queen Elizabeth. I can't remember which one, but she started one of the first churches in Scotland on a hill called Carr Hill, and wanted to name the church after Archangel Michael. So the descendants from the area took the name Carmichael. So that's where the name comes from. And then I found out later that one of my ancestors, Sir Jon Carmichael, he was knighted. He killed King Henry VIII's brother, and it was I think it was called the 100-Year War, or I might be butchering this. Sorry,
no, the 100 Years War.
I apologize to all the Carmichaels out there that know the full story, but he killed King Henry VIII's brother, who was the commander of the opposing side, broke his spear in the process, and so our family crest is a broken spear, and so he was knighted and became Sir Jon Carmichael. So
okay, hey,
had no idea.
What's your family crest got on it?
I have no idea. I was going to ask you, what have you done in your life?
I mean, I work hard. I pay taxes.
That's cool.
Rob, come on.
I mean, I try.
I mean, everybody knows how badass of a career you've had.
No.
I don't know what my family crest is.
He's got a broken spear? Because that's what the Carmichaels do.
There it is. Oh, tour de presse. I'm so bad at French, but it means always ready in French.
Dude, you got a family crest with a broken spear, and I don't even know if I have one.
I got a guy who's standing there, and one hand is empty, and the other hand is an empty pint. And his pockets are pulled out to show that he doesn't have any more money.
He got X's for eyes.
And he's got X's for eyes. And it just says, what the fuck?
Riggle. It says Riggle. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Yeah, but in French.
Yeah. So it sounds classy.
Yes. What's the fuck?
Yeah, j'appelle so much Riggle.
Oh, what if we did a podcast in French? That was really good.
So that's what mine says.
That's
What's
cool.
up? What's up?
You know what? You just trumped his. Your crest is cooler. I'm just having a hard time. I believe everything you're saying. It's fascinating to me because you know what my story is? I grew up I jumped a bunch of bikes on some jumps.
Yeah.
I skateboarded. I made out with Susan.
Pretty rad. That's pretty
It was
rad.
pretty rad. And then I had a dog.
Yeah.
And then I played rock and roll.
And you had a sweet afro.
I had a sweet afro. It was a mullet / afro, bro.
It was. I've seen pictures.
It was hyper tight.
It was. Come on, give me
Thanks,
something.
dude.
That was
Come on,
fantastic.
John. Yeah, no, that's my life. Very similar to yours.
So, and we didn't even get time to touch on some of the stuff. We may be able to squeeze in one more story here, because what you need to know about John is he is one of these Renaissance men, right? Who does it all. So he public speaks, he does TED Talks, he was a NASA candidate, not just spoke at NASA but a candidate, an astronaut.
SpaceX.
The SpaceX.
Yeah.
Oh, SpaceX.
It was
astronaut.
the mission to the moon, actually, and final. Gabe and I, how we got together.
Our audience knows Gabe.
Okay.
We've had Gabe on before.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's right,
multi-talented,
Yeah.
devastatingly good
So
looking.
you met him at the astronaut program.
Yeah, we were both finalists, and we both didn't make the final cut, and we were so devastated. And it's kind of
That was to go to the moon?
To go to the freaking moon.
Okay.
Could you There's
No.
nothing bigger than that.
So I have
and
questions.
I've been grieving for the last 2 years.
I can imagine.
Do you come home from the moon?
Well, hopefully, but I honestly, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, this mission's in 2 years. I have 2 more years to live. You know, that's the mindset I had.
I get that,
because I was willing to give my life for that. I mean, that's a hell of a way to go,
dude.
And,
if of all the ways to go.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. And it was an artist project where they take a group of artists to space, which has never been done before.
Yeah.
All these astronauts experience the Earth from high up above. The term is the overview effect.
Sure.
That's been coined, and these astronauts are always like, oh God, man, they should bring a poet. They should bring an artist. There's no words that can describe.
Well, show them this picture.
Well, that's what I try to convey in my artwork with astrophotography is that sort of cosmic view of the world, as Carl Sagan would say, to remind us that we're living on this small pale blue dot, right? And we're these little specks on this other speck floating in nothingness, and it's like, what is even going on?
Yeah,
how do we even exist?
Yeah.
It is. And I think that's very humbling, and it's important that we humble ourselves, because we could all use an ego check and remind ourselves of that.
Darren?
And that,
dude. When you say it like that, it sounds mean.
What?
You could, Darren.
No, John said it beautifully. He said we all, we need to be reminded of who we are in the big picture.
Which I agree with.
Right? And it's healthy to have an ego check. And I just said, Darren.
He does this a lot.
Sorry, John. Keep going.
Yeah.
so Rob, saying that we need ego checks, I just have to throw it back.
Thank you, John.
Wait a minute.
Thank you, John. Well done.
I think it's Rob's ego that caused that comment. So,
what's up?
Gotta balance it.
It's my guy right here.
Don't.
It's my guy.
Don't go. What's up?
It's my guy right there, dude. Thanks for coming. Thanks for listening to John's picks.
It's my podcast now.
Oh,
it's great having you guys.
It happens so
John,
fast.
you got to just say the word bitch after that. It's my podcast now, bitch.
My podcast now, bitch.
Oh God, John! Don't take his advice.
Be sure to close the door on your way out.
Yeah. Hey, John, do you think we can afford air conditioning? Because
That's
right
on
now
Gary.
we can't.
Put that straight on Gary.
Gary, it's hot.
Gary's responsible for our comfort, and he doesn't care about
John's dropping heat stories, and it's so hot in here.
But you also you speak, you write, you create art, you do a lot of amazing things. You are just now starting a journey in a camper van.
Yeah.
So do you want to explain or tell us a little bit about that, because you just started, right?
Yeah, it's right outside. I got to show it to you.
This is awesome. Amazing.
This has been a dream since I was 9 years old. My best friend's parents, growing up, next door neighbor, got this cool camper van in the 90s, and I just thought it was the coolest thing ever, because my parents never went camping. We never traveled, and it drove me crazy. And I had this wanderlust mentality growing up, and I can't wait till I become an adult so I can see the world. There's this amazing world, and we only have one life, but a million different ways to live it, and that. Yeah, so I hit the ground running when I became an adult, and so a camper van was always very alluring, especially as an astrophotographer. I have to be out in the middle of nowhere, away from light pollution, which is very exhausting. Being out in the middle of nowhere, camping, and you need power and all my telescope stuff, and And so the camper van, something I've been designing for 3 years, and I really went all out with it. And I has a full kitchen, full bathroom. I invented something that's never been done before in any RV, and the entire wardrobe closet transforms into a full bathroom and shower, and it's completely invisible. No, you would never guess. And so the builder that I chose to hire and work with, Lucas Revisa, for 3 years, you know, I learned a whole architecture program in VR. I mean, every square inch of this thing I designed to a T, and he was helping me build what my design was, and it took a long time. And so when it was finally done, I pay him his final $10,000 check. The next morning, he posts, and I was very clear, you know, that I'm going to work on a patent for this and that, you know, and the next morning after I paid him his final check, he posts a stop motion video that he pre-filmed, took my van out somewhere without my knowledge or consent, before I was even insured to be driving, did this whole film thing of my entire design, posted it on social media, and it, bam, got 10 million views. You know, he now has 100,000 followers. He had 1,000 or 2,000 before. And I said, you got to take this down, man. I don't have the patent application done, you know, and all this. Yeah. And he said, sorry, but I worked hard on this. I deserve that. Oh, and as soon as I told him, can you please take this down? He at least tagged me and said it was my design. He untagged me, then started calling it my design. He changed his whole website to my van,
this is
saying,
a bummer.
This is
doesn't sound like a Jon story. I'm not believing it.
Well, see, that's a good point, because, you know, we all share our highlight stories, right?
Right.
We talk about, oh, you know, his life must be so amazing, and that can cause a toxic environment, especially social media, right?
Yeah.
You look at everybody's highlight reels, but there's a lot of really tough. I've been through some devastations in my life that even just now, my van, I spent $15,000 on this whole battery power system, and it crapped out because of this builder installing the alternator incorrectly. So I now have to spend $200 an hour hiring an electrician to fix it all. And anyway, this guy just really ruined so many things with it. But I am very proud of it, and I will get it, you know, worked out.
Good.
But
I hope you get a patent and get it out there yourself.
Can you poop on the van?
Oh yeah, it's
in the van.
In the van. I guess you can poop on it.
I go on the roof and just poop on the roof.
I was about to say, you can poop on any vehicle.
I get that.
I think what you were wanting to ask was.
But yes, there's a great toilet. It's a new I didn't invent this, but it's a dry flush toilet, and it's kind of like a space toilet. It's sort of like a diaper genie for adults. So I'll show it to you. It's very cool. And so it's odorless. It's painless to clean up.
Odorless is huge.
There's no mess. There's no black tank craziness you have to deal with. It's great. It's fantastic.
That's crazy, because on most tour buses, the rule is you just don't poop.
Yeah.
So I think that's fantastic that you've given yourself that choice.
Well, yeah, especially, as much road time as you're going to be putting in, you're going to need to be able to take a quality D.
Yeah, I was thinking about just never pooping, but
that's not an option.
Yeah.
That's not.
No, I guess that's not really a choice you have. Is it, Jon?
Well, you know, anything's possible.
You know, with him,
I'm like, he's like, it's just a problem that has to be solved.
My dad was John Hamm from Mad Men.
There's a will, there's a way.
I've met the president 15 times, and I decided I'm not going to poop anymore.
Yeah. And thank you.
Thanks, humanity. Yeah. So, real quick, I want to go back to something that you said. I think it's amazing that you said you were willing to give your life to go on this space trip.
Yeah.
Well, it's a moon.
To the moon.
Right. So don't just say it's a space trip. It's to the moon and
I get
back.
it.
Right.
I get it. But like, to have that much, like, you were okay, and you may still be, you are okay with ending this time on Earth to go do that thing. And I think it's amazing to have that much passion about something, to go, I'm willing to cut it short if I get to go do that, but potentially.
Well, and the thing is, I got to jump in too, because I hear what you're saying. But it's not that he's willing to accept 100% risk.
Of course, I'm not saying that.
But he's planning on coming back.
Yes.
Yes, but to be able to commit to something, to have that kind of vision and clarity that, yes, this is worth my shot.
Yes, that's the amazing part to me.
Well, and also this eclipse photo changed not just my career, but my whole mindset on things. I didn't realize how inspiring art can really be for people, and the fact that this mission was going to bring a whole group of artists to go do this, which since has been canceled. Just like a month ago, it got canceled. So it wouldn't have happened anyway. But millions of people applied, so being in the top 20 out of 8 selected crew members was crazy. And so for a year and a half, I was fully convinced. I would look up at the moon totally differently. I'm like, I can't believe I'm going there, And so now for the last year or so, whenever I found out that I'm not going, I haven't even been able to look at the moon anymore. My entire love and passion for astronomy has been totally dormant.
Oh, that's too bad.
That's something that I never thought could be taken away from me,
Right.
Well, because it hurt. It hurt to have that.
Oh yeah, it's
It
a
hurt.
grieving unlike
It's a
anything I
grieving.
ever could have
Yeah.
imagined. That only other, the astronauts back in the 60s, NASA astronauts that didn't make the final cut, would obviously be able to relate to that. They worked much harder than some
It's
did me,
because
but-
you allow yourself to go there
Mm.
in your mind. You allow it to happen. Like, oh my gosh, this is going to be my reality. This is what's going to happen.
Right.
That happens every time you go out for a role in acting.
Mm.
You allow yourself to go there. And
Right.
go, I'm going to be in this movie with so and so, and I'm going to get to play this
Right,
character.
right.
And then they come along, and they say, no, not you. And
Yeah,
you go,
somebody who looks different.
Yeah,
you
you
go,
have-
"Ah."
Yeah, you have to be a master of rejection in that industry.
Yeah. You got to thick skin.
Does
Yeah.
Having gone through this experience, does it change how you feel about like relationships or yourself or humanity, and go, God, we're really small and we're only here for a small amount of time? Your perspective, did it change?
Oh yeah. Well, having an older father did that to me too, seeing how short life is. And my dad had a lot of wisdom, and he had health problems. He had his first heart attack when I was 13. So reality set in very quickly. And so, and I had some close friends that passed away when I was a teenager in a car accident. And so, yeah, that changed my mindset. And Carl Sagan was my biggest inspiration growing up. And so I always dreamt of being an astronaut one day, but I just was like, oh, I'm not smart enough. I'm not a great academic. I can't be a NASA astronaut. But that was before SpaceX and commercial space travel and all this. And then when they announced this, I just fell to tears that, wait, this unrealistic dream of being an astronaut actually could happen.
And you're actually one of the finalists?
Right.
Yeah.
It was, and I pursued it for 4.5 years since they announced it. And so my whole world was.
How about now that you know that it didn't materialize for anybody? Is that some sort of salve on? Okay, well, it didn't. It not.
Yeah.
I wasn't assuming the whole thing was scrapped.
Yeah, I feel for the candidates, because I know that devastation, especially when you are actually one of the crew members, and now you just wasted even more years of your life. But my biggest fear was I couldn't imagine witnessing that launch and not being on that rocket, and so I'm grateful that I won't have to go through that, but obviously it's just sad regardless, because it was going to be a beautiful project of a bunch of artists trying to convey that message we were talking about of this small pale blue dot Earth, and our problems aren't as big as we make it, and there's only one race, the human race, and let's come together and all these things.
It was like Apollo 8 when they came around the moon and they saw
Earthrise. See, when people
Earthrise.
say this is history's most amazing photo, I'm like, what about Earthrise?
Yeah.
Come on now.
Well, but Earthrise, and also I bet you have a lot of empathy for Jim Lovell.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. He went up, Jim and I, he went up in Apollo a couple times, did all this amazing stuff, and when it was his turn to go land on the moon, Apollo 13, it all blew up, and so he had to take it back home and just go around it, wave goodbye.
That's where I could have been.
Yeah.
I was think how much training and preparation he did mentally.
It's not that
to
bad.
set foot.
Man.
It's not
Right.
that bad.
So,
but I will. I know that we have to wrap up, but I'll.
It is your podcast. Dude.
it's amazing.
You know what?
I'm trying.
I don't know,
I'm just
dude.
trying to,
He came in with an agenda.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to be mindful of the time, because I know I can drag my stories
I
out.
think I
please,
love you, John.
John.
I think I'm falling in love with you.
John, this is your world.
This
we're all
is
just We're
uncomfortable.
just squirrels trying to get nuts, man.
That's amazing. Dude, you rule. Seriously, you're a fascinating human.
Let's go check out his camper.
Let's go.
Let's go check out the camp.
All right. Well, we got to make the sound.
Oh yeah. Oh, by the way, you're more than welcome to join us, John. We do a little air horn for the folks. Hey, by the way, this has been Riggle's Picks. I want to thank Jon Carmichael for coming and spending time and sharing these stories. Please check out YouTube, Riggle's Picks on YouTube, and take a look at this picture that John took, which is powerful and really beautiful. And they can probably
and the
go
new photo too, by the way.
Yeah, tell us where we can find the rest of your work and find out more about you.
Just my website, joncarmichael.com.
No H.
No H in John. Yep. The guy with the H that has that website refuses to give it to me, but
he's the same guy that built your van.
Yeah, same dude.
That guy, he's awful.
God, he's the nemesis. He's your Newman.
He's the villain in your movie.
He is my nemesis. Oh yeah, it's right now the homepage is more speaking because I've developed a huge passion for speaking. The fact that you can really, that's that Twitter moment, by the way.
Jon Carmichael, no H in John, Jon Carmichael, and you're going to see some cool stuff. This is a cool page.
Go JonCarmichael.com or Instagram at Jon_Carmichael, and Twitter or X is at photographer Jon, no H.
That's awesome.
And we should take that Will Smith down.
Yeah. Did he slap you?
Did you get slapped?
No.
The Dalai Lama, Elton John, Michelle Obama.
Whatever, John. Nice flex.
Yeah, whatever, John.
Nice flex.
I lived in India for 3.5 months and changed my whole world, and I was so honored. The Dalai Lama invited me to meet him in his home, and his biggest passion is astronomy and photography, the Dalai Lama. So we hit it off.
That's crazy.
Anyway, I will give a little teaser that for 7 years since the last eclipse, everybody's been asking me, what are you doing for the next eclipse? You know, because nobody knew I was really doing this, and I was by myself, so the stakes weren't as high. If it didn't work out, okay, I at least get to experience it.
Dude.
But now with the photo, these are some of the limited editions here. The eclipse photo is the only photo I've released an open edition of. It's only $100 for a large 24 by 36 inch print because I wanted people to be able to afford it and have it. So if I had that photo in my bedroom as a kid, I would have, it would have inspired me. But the Batman photo is a crazy story too. But so anyway, David Copperfield, I'll just say really quick because I apologize for name dropping again.
You can't help it, John.
Yeah.
It's just part of who you are.
So you live your life.
But for 7 years, I have no idea what I'm going to do for this next eclipse because this is now, the eclipse last April was the last eclipse for 20 years here. And, now there's all this pressure and expectations to outdo myself and all this. And just about a month before the eclipse, I was actually planning on not photographing it. I just wanted to be with my friends and family and enjoy it because when you photograph something you don't really get to be in the moment. And then David frickin' Copperfield reaches out to me because he's planning on making the moon disappear. That's going to be his greatest illusion of his lifetime, and wanted to collaborate. Our dinner went so well, lasted till 2 a.m. Found out he's never seen a total solar eclipse before. I said, David, you got to see a solar eclipse. It's all about the moon making the sun disappear, and you want to make the moon disappear. And so I went on this whole tangent, and he turned to his assistant saying, can you tell this guy's passionate? And my friend Matt was at the dinner and said, hey, if your jet's available, I'm sure John would love to fly with you. And so David's whole expression changed, and he got dead serious, and he said, what's my schedule on April 8th? Which happened to be the anniversary of when he made the Statue of Liberty disappear. So on the anniversary of the Statue of Liberty disappearing, David invited me to fly with him on his private jet to help me achieve another impossible photograph together. And I ended up working with his pilot for many, many weeks, Craig, who's amazing. And so I'm working on that new image now. There was a documentary crew on board, so we're trying to find people. If you know anybody, you're in Hollywood, let me know if you know anybody that would want to be interested in directing and really growing legs. It's this crazy, crazy story. And it also it was the first time I picked up my camera ever since the loss of the moon, and because of that opportunity, my whole passion is back again. So that's why I'm back in the van and all that.
Good.
So I'm really excited to share that story in the new image. So the new image is going to be really, really crazy. And Gabe was a big part of that because he was on the ground, taking photos and videos of the sky because it was getting so clouded out. And, I'm working with the pilot, and we're trying to talk to air traffic control. Where do I go? Now I finally have the private jet I've always dreamed of. Yeah. Now the paradox of choice. Where do I go? And thank God, I asked David, do you have internet on board? He said, how badly do you need it? Because I found out later it was like $5,000 or something. And Gabe's photos and videos came in from Mazatlan, and I thought, okay, we got to go to Mazatlan. I had 30 seconds to decide, do we go toward Texas or Mexico?
Yeah.
And it was like down to the second, and I decided to go to Mexico. We just hit the coast right when the moon shadow was coming toward us. It was the craziest moment, and my mom was on board. David invited my mom to be on board, which is great, because I titled this last photo 108 because that's my dad's birthday, in honor of my dad, October 8th. And so it was just came full circle for my mom to be part of it, and
that's really cool. That's really special too.
So you never know what's possible.
Man, I'm telling you, I feel like you're manifesting all these things that you've had in your mind for a long time. You find a way to make them happen. That's amazing.
What cool things are you doing?
I got to go to 7-Eleven after this, and
can I cruise with you? I got nothing.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I got to buy some toilet paper.
Yeah.
And some toothpaste.
I'll get some Pringles.
And I want to get some Pringles.
Yeah.
Sour cream.
Let's just do that.
All right.
I guess he's gonna go make history, and we're gonna go snack.
Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome.
John, thank you, man.
Everybody, this has been Riggle's Picks.
This was so fun.
Thanks for listening.